And Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky speaking out after a massive Russian attack on Ukraine. Officials say Russia launched more than 260 drones hitting energy and gas infrastructure targets. It's one of the largest air attacks in the conflict to date. Now Zelensky's reiterating his vision for peace. Chief international correspondent James Longman joins me now, along with ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy. James, what's the latest on this Russian attack?
Well, Diane, Vladimir Putin is taking his chance to turn up the pressure on Ukraine, especially after that disastrous press conference at the White House last week. Now is as good a time as any to try to turn the Ukrainian people against Zelensky. It's been part of his the pattern that we've seen over these years of war. But this, as you say there, one of the most significant attacks since the war began, more than 260 missiles and drones fired at energy infrastructure, trying to, yes, hinder the war effort, but also make life really difficult for regular people. And that's exactly what President Zelensky said. He took to social media to say this is once again Russia trying to make life difficult for normal people. But he drew attention to the help he received in trying to bring these drones and missiles down from the French. They deployed F-16s and Mirage jets to intercept these projectiles, which they did mostly successfully. And President Zelensky there drawing attention to European help in fighting this war, or defending Ukraine from the Russian onslaught, in stark contrast, of course, to some of the overtures we've heard from the Trump administration, the pause in military aid, the pause in intelligence sharing, which is going to make fighting this war basically impossible for Ukraine in the long run. So Zelensky drawing attention to French help off the back of a summit with European leaders. They have shown solidarity with the Ukrainian president, with the Ukrainian people, but he's going to need a lot more than solidarity to keep defending Ukraine from Russia.
And Mick, President Trump's decision to pause military aid and intelligence sharing has raised concerns that Ukraine's air defenses will be less effective. What kind of an impact could that have?
That's right, Diane. That's one of the first things they're concerned about running out. That and the 105.55 millimeter artillery shells, or what is expected to start running out in May. And of course, part of intelligence is offensive, but part of it it's defensive. So to the extent that we cut out our intelligence sharing with Ukraine, that could leave them more vulnerable to these attacks, not knowing when they're launched and which direction they're coming from. So that's a big concern, I think, of the Ukrainians, and obviously their NATO partners. It should be, including ourselves. And the United States, President Trump said this morning that acknowledged this attack and said he was looking at significant sanctions on Russia. So hopefully that got their attention. The best thing to do, of course, would be to turn intelligence back on and our security assistance back on.
James, what is President Zelensky saying about how Ukrainian forces can respond now that the U.S. has paused military aid?
Well, by most estimates, the Ukrainians believe that they can continue fighting for a year without American help. Whether or not that's true, we just heard there from Mick. I mean, intelligence sharing is crucial in fighting Russia for, communications and satellite imagery, all that kind of stuff. So that is yet really to be seen whether or not they can keep going. But he's striking a very conciliatory tone. He took to social media basically to say, last week's meeting was unfortunate, but I'm ready for peace. I'm ready to make a deal. He wants a truce in the sky and in the sea, is what he says, to try to stop Russia from continuing these aerial bombardments. And he says he's ready to sign this minerals deal, which of course was part of, or should have been part of the visit, where President Zelensky was, we understand, ejected from the White House before that deal could be signed. What's going to happen next week is he's planning on going to Saudi Arabia to be part of ongoing talks, possibly to try to get that deal back on the table, because President Zelensky understands that business is the language that Donald Trump speaks. And Ukraine is thought to be very, very rich in minerals, the kind of minerals and raw earth materials that we all need in our lives to make the modern world function. Titanium, zirconium, graphite, 19 billion tons of graphite, which of course goes into electric batteries. So look, he knows a deal could be made, and I think that might be the first step to trying to get a diplomatic solution back on track.
Mick, what are you watching for as Ukrainian and U.S. officials head to Saudi Arabia to discuss possible peace talks?
So as James just said, it's clear that President Zelensky is ready for ceasefire negotiations. He's agreed to the general framework of the minerals agreement. It's now time for the U.S. and Ukraine and Europe to get on the same sheet of music and start talking to Russia about what they're willing to do, because right now there's not much that Russia has said that they're willing to basically agree to. it's really going to take two parts to this conflict to have a ceasefire agreement. And obviously, the aggressor, the one that launched this war unprovoked, is going to have to agree to it. It's time for the U.S. and Europe to actually put things on the table that will be of consequence to Russia, which could include increasing support to Ukraine.
James Longman, Mick Mulroy, thank you both.